It's always your language, right?
Really? I just got some and they're so much better.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm calling the school committee business meeting to order for November 4th, 6:30 in the high school library. Ms. Yell, whenever you're ready with the roll call. Thank you.
No, they don't have to, they're not doing public comment.
Okay, so I think she thinks she knows.
Okay, I'll just check that with you when we get to it.
Mayor Reardon,
Absent.
Sarah Hall,
Here.
Andrew Boger,
Here.
Brian Callahan,
Here.
Brianna Higgins, here, Catherine Shaw,
Here.
Leah Walker,
Present?
Okay, please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next is public comment, and are these? This is
Mary, yeah.
This one is correct. Okay, so just a moment. I just need to read a couple details here, and then you can come on up. Please keep to topics within the school committee's scope of authority. We encourage civility. Be mindful of the fact that this is a public meeting which is being live streamed and recorded for all ages in our community. Please be aware that this is not an opportunity for discussion and you will not receive a response at this time. You will have 2 minutes for your comment. Longer comments can be sent to the school committee via email. All right, you can come on up, and do we want her to stand up here? Is that
That's
okay?
a live mic right there.
You got a whole podium.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your volunteer work that you do here. I decided to come here about 40 minutes ago. I saw an article in the Globe today about schools' use of cell phones and restricted use. One of the schools in particular was the Elliott in Boston, which is a highly regarded school. So I wanted to share my support of restricted use of cell phones in school. I keep coming back to the image of the lunchroom and my kids who go here and how important of a time that is for them to actually put their phones down and talk to each other and practice social emotional skills that we teach them in schools now. So a quick anecdote, I took my son to a soccer tournament 2 weeks ago, and after the game, a bunch of us went out for breakfast, and there was 11 boys over here, parents over here, and as soon as we sat down, all the phones went up like that, and nobody was talking. So I took my hat off and I said, how about we turn on our phones? And I collected the phones, and there was a tiny bit of grumbling. A couple of parents looked at me shocked, kind of like, wow, I can't believe you're doing that. But I got a bunch, and then within a couple of minutes, it was talking and communicating, and the kids were having a great time. And I feel like we need to have that in our schools, and I know I've read some comments that, well, that's the parents' responsibility. If you don't want your kid to have a cell phone, take it from them. But what would be the difference if I took just my son's phone and let all the other boys? How would that have changed the situation from them having a lively conversation? So I don't agree with that. I don't think that's going to help the problem if we just say we're leaving it up to parents. Although I do think there's responsibility there, of course. I also think that there's now 31 schools out of the 125 Boston public schools that are implementing a pouch system, which I would support. I know there's also this argument of don't tell me what to do with my kid, but I also thought of the instance where maybe 4 years ago, my daughter went to a dance and told me later that there was breathalyzer there, which I'm not opposed to, but no one asked us if...
That's 2 minutes, if you could wrap up, please.
If nobody asked us what our thoughts are, or even if we wanted to give permission for that. So I do think it's in your purview to make the decisions what's best for these kids, and I support that, and I hope that we get a phone-free lunch soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's it for public comment. Consent agenda. Mr. Callahan, you have warrants ready?
I do. I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $436,091.90 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All right, we have one set of minutes. It's from our last meeting on October 21st. Are there any corrections to those minutes? All right, could I get a motion to approve the October 21st minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, Logan, over to you.
All right. So in the Bresnahan, they are hosting their annual Veterans Day Assembly this Friday at 8:45 a.m. They have approximately 20 local veterans visiting their school. Bresnahan students will present at the assembly, sing together, and share gratitude for their community veterans who served their country. This is a very special event for the whole school, and they are looking forward to it. This is the Bresnahan's second year with iReady Mathematics as their math curriculum. Students are strengthening their skills by explaining their thinking to classmates and listening to other people's strategies. This week, third graders were sharing ways they could use arrays to solve multiplication equations. When playing games at home, have your child share their thinking for strategies they used or calculations that they made. Students have begun earning tokens for the NEF book vending machine. For the first term, students will work on completing a level in Lexia, one of our digital literacy resources. Every Friday, we announce the students who have earned a token, and they come to use the vending machine. This has been a lot of fun. Students are filled with joy and wonder as they choose a book. They engage in turn-taking and cooperation while using the vending machine in a group of peers. One frequently asked question is, do I get to keep this book? The answer is yes. Thanks to the NEF, we are excited to gift these books to students. In the Mullen, the Sustainability and Climate Innovation Learning Lab visited the Mullen, and fourth graders continued their hands-on learning of erosion. Also, the Mullen had a fun Halloween parade attended by many families, and after the parade, the students attended local nursing homes, spreading Halloween joy. In the Knock, they said that they are excited to share that their recent Jack-O-Lite Night was a tremendous success, drawing over 350 attendees. This event truly was a home run, thanks to the hard work and dedication of our 7th grade students and teachers. When speaking with students about what made the event so special, many highlighted its impact on school spirit and community. Comments included, "School was fun again. I got to work with students I typically don't collaborate with to help plan this event, and it was a true team effort. It was wonderful to see our community come together, fostering connections and celebrating our school spirit." I also want to remind everyone not to miss the Knock Fall Play, a rendition of Badger. Performances will take place this Wednesday and Thursday, both starting at 6 p.m. It promises to be an engaging show, and I encourage everyone to come out and support our talented students. Now, from the high school, last week the students delivered lessons for our underclassmen to learn about the issues of the election, understand the different perspectives on a range of issues, and know where each candidate stands on the issue. They facilitated these conversations during last week's Clipper Block. The lessons were a product of weeks of research and participating in their dialogues to truly understand the varying viewpoints around many of the points being discussed with this year's election. Alongside their work to help the public become certified in CPR, the Red Cross Club is also making plans for how our school will recognize Veterans Day. On November 13th, the club will host a veteran panel discussion and a reception for our students. This will happen during the Clipper Block. After the panel discussion, students will have the opportunity to mingle with the speakers at the reception. Students and staff are all invited to sign up for this event. The Global Citizenship Program held a workshop in October exploring cultural identity through poetry, with guest poets Rina Espile, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that name, who shared about her Dominican roots, and Princess Moon, who is the daughter of Cambodian refugees escaping the genocide. After readings and discussions, students had a poetry writing workshop writing their own cultural identity poems. Students on the Dominican Republic trip and members of Poetry Soup were invited to join. Teachers Eileen McConey and Deborah Sabo, I'm sorry, I don't know, it's SZABO, organized the event. Funds were provided through an NEF grant. Newburyport High School Theater Department will be presenting The Play That Goes Wrong November 16th to the 23rd, 2024 at the NHS Institution for Savings Auditorium. This hilarious comedy premiered in London's West End in 2012 and is from the writers of The Goes Wrong show on BBC. This show is 100% appropriate for all audiences and is sure to deliver belly laughs abound. Tickets will be available at the door 30 minutes before curtain and will be general admission. Flyers attached. The cast and crew of 30 students would love to see you there, and they will hold a complimentary ticket for all school committee members. Simply mention your names at the box office. So that's it. Thank you
Thanks,
guys.
Logan.
Yeah,
I'm
thank you
definitely
guys.
going to that show.
Yeah,
Okay.
you should.
Mr. Wolf, going to come tell us about the NHS international trips for next year. You can come all the way up here, okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for having me tonight. Before I do get into giving a summary of the trips that our teachers have organized for the 2025-26 school year, I did want to kind of share some demographic information that the school committee has vested interest in, and actually it's been a great process for me with the teacher advisors as well. And I think kind of our new process in talking with Superintendent Gallagher is that each year prior, when I come up to introduce new trips, that this would just be part of the process, is sharing the information that we have. And I do want to do a shout out to Aileen McConey. Really, the work that she has done with the Global Citizenship Program is really helping us to better streamline these structures as well and make sure that our trips are accessible for all of our students. So the data that I have for this year's, the trips that would be happening this year, we have 4 trips. One trip that's going to Central Europe in April, a trip to the Dominican Republic in February, also a trip to France in April, and a trip to Italy in the summer after this school year. We have a total of 76 students who have signed up and are registered for the trip, 17 seniors, 39 juniors, 15 sophomores, and 5 freshmen. There are a total of 10 students who do receive free and reduced lunch. As of right now, 6 students have already received aid, and the applications for the scholarships would be closing in mid-December for those trips. So most likely there will be a few more students. And I'm also aware of another student who is not on free and reduced lunch but experienced a hardship, and the Global Citizenship Program was able to support them with some additional funding. Now, just in terms of methods for scholarship, and this is really where Ms. McConey has been instrumental. So she has also been, and with teachers that are part of the program and with her Global Citizenship group, securing donations that will support student sponsorships. And the PTO and the Alumni Association have been great partners with her for helping to set that up. So she is also in process of setting up a Global Scholars Travel Scholarship Fund. So that way we have something established in future years that the teacher advisors would be able to pull from to issue scholarships. Some of the traditional ways that we've been able to support students is EF does provide a stipend of up to $1,000 for trips, and our teachers have always committed that that stipend is used to support student scholarship. And then larger trips, such as the trip to France that has 37 students that would be attending. So the school gets a free trip that's part of that, and that gets dispersed amongst students that are in need as well. So those are some of the ways, but I think the Global Scholars Travel Scholarship Fund is really going to be a big piece of that. And then also another piece that we've done to help make the trips more accessible is I have asked all of the teachers, so we now meet as a group versus meeting individually, which used to be the case. So now there's more consistency in the processes that teachers will take on when organizing a trip. But we've asked all of them to have part of their applications, just for the sign-up, just inquiring if a family would have need. And so that way, that allows the advisor to be able to reach out to those families and make sure that they have access to the scholarship application that they can fill out. And then also, what was a nice takeaway from the budget forum that happened 2 weeks ago, when parents also recommended, when families are doing their application and registering, that we could simply have a question if they would also like to make a donation to support the scholarship fund. So those are the measures that we're putting in place to really support that. And I think this is a great process for me as the principal, obviously, to be able to constantly have a handle on making sure these things are accessible for all of our students. Any questions? Yes.
Could I just make a quick comment? Thank you so much for doing that. It's so responsive to what we've been asking, but it's also a really incredible process that you've put together. And as I was listening to you, it just reminded me of a study that was released only a couple of weeks ago, so this is why it was fresh in my mind, of what they are calling an opportunity of kind of extracurriculars. And so, while it's, most people would know that children from wealthier families often have more access to extracurriculars, this was the first study that has taken place over 30 years that actually quantified that measure and how many opportunities that was and what that actually meant in their lives. And if you could just bear with me for a second, I'm just going to read this because it's a lot better than I can say it. In the end, the findings, the authors found that the opportunity gap appears to be a more powerful predictor of future educational attainment and earnings than childhood poverty. Children from low-income households were benefited from even a few of these opportunities, had better outcomes as young adults. When children moved from low-income households moved from 0 to 4 opportunities, for example, their odds of graduating from college jumped from 10 to 50%, and their annual salaries by 26 increased by $10,000. So it was just a matter of the out-of-school opportunities that those children are given and what a big impact that has on their lives. So
That's
thank
great.
you.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for the feedback. So I think we have a pretty decent structure in place for us to constantly be reflecting on that.
Madam Vice Chair,
Yes.
just one question again.
Yes.
I really appreciate, this is exactly what I was hoping you guys would provide, and I appreciate also that under your leadership, Mr. Wolf, you're also asking this group to sort of think strategically about what these numbers mean and how you can, move to make it more equitable and accessible. So I really appreciate that. One thing I also wanted to just ask about is accessibility for folks who are involved in theater and athletics, and is that being communicated to the program directors and coaches that if they have students who are interested in doing the study abroad, can they make accommodations for them during their season or I know it's sometimes harder with performances, but just understanding that we're trying to support people being well-rounded and not having to just focus on one aspect of their interest. And maybe if you haven't done that, if you could just make sure that's also being communicated and also to parents, that they can understand that their students can participate in these programs and not restricted if they are an athlete, for example.
Yeah, and that is not a conversation that I have had, but it's definitely something that we can definitely take on and can be even a part. We're going to be starting our process soon on looking for our new athletic director. So that obviously somebody that would fit that culture that we're trying to do here, is we want our students to be experiencing a lot of different opportunities. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand. Okay. That's right, I'm actually here for the trips for next year. So the trips for the 2026 school year, so we have 4 of them that are currently being planned. We have one that is to England and Scotland, which is for college and culture. The advisor for that is Aaron Roboto Smith, and that would happen during February break of 2026. The approximate cost is $4,200, and highlights of this trip include touring the National Museum of Scotland, Edinburgh Castle. Students will also be taking a tour of the University of Oxford and also New College that is affiliated with Oxford. And then they will also be taking tours in a lot of the sites in London. The second trip is a trip being sponsored by our science department to Peru. And the core advisor for this is Erin Hobbs, and would happen during April vacation of 2026. The approximate cost of this trip is $4,600. Highlights of the trip include a tour of the city of Lima, exploring the ancient agricultural terraces of Moray, experiencing an immersive agricultural day, and then visiting Machu Picchu. The third trip, which the advisor for this trip is Aileen McConey, and this is to Belgium and the Netherlands, but it's more of an environmental experience trip with agriculture as the primary focus. This would happen during the summer of 2026 with an approximate cost of $4,200. Highlights of this trip include students experiencing the innovation of Belgian and Dutch agriculture and horticulture with visits to working farms, field labs, and greenhouses. And Brussels offers a master class in sustainable farming practices, and then Amsterdam serves up exposure to cutting-edge technology for agriculture. And so that will be everything that the students will be experiencing on that trip. The final trip is the Gap Exchange, which happens every 2 years with Spencer Wolf through our German program. So the German-American Partnership Program is a program that's co-sponsored between the United States and Germany. So they partially subsidize this trip. This trip is typically approximately around $2,500 for students who participate. And this happens, our students would be going to Germany in June of 2026 for 3 weeks, and it's an immersion program where they stay with a host family. And this involves our sister school which is Waldkirch in the Black Forest, and their students will be coming here in September of 2025, and they will be staying with our families. So the students that will be going to Germany, they will be hosting their counterparts from Germany in the fall of the 25-26 school year, and then in June of 2026, our students go and stay with their families. And those are the 4 trips that we are currently in the planning process for.
Any questions for Mr. Wolf?
I'm sorry, I missed what the England-Scotland trip, like, academic focus is. Is it?
That is college and culture.
Great.
So so it's actually being sponsored through the
Mr.
College
Smith.
and Career Center
Yeah.
with Mr. Smith.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, have you guys been using this provider, EF, for a while?
Yes.
But like how long?
Since I've been here, they've been the primary
Okay.
one. There is a new company that is actually being used for Peru that I believe works with the Knock Middle School on their trips. It's called the Global Citizenship Program, or the Global Citizen Program, excuse me.
Oh, that's great to hear, actually. I was going to recommend looking at them.
Yep.
EF is a quality organization, but they're also a massive Swiss, privately owned money-making machine, and these are very expensive trips, and the sales incentives they use are often, it's just wonderful to hear that the teachers are willing to kick that back as part of the scholarship program.
Oh, yes.
That's really quite incredible, because that's what they're doing. They're trying to incentivize teachers to get on their trips. So I would encourage you to look at, in the future perhaps, at some of the nonprofits and more local organizations as a comparative analysis, that's all. These are amazing. Thank you for providing this.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, I can make a motion to approve the NHS international trips for the 25-26 school year as presented by Mr. Wolf in accordance with policy JJH. Did I get that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thanks for
thank you
coming
very
in.
much.
Okay. We're up to the MSBA invite to the Accelerated Repair Program. Very exciting.
All right, yes, so some good news, and actually, maybe I'll go up top. Mr. McSweeney's also here, too. Yes, we're very excited. As we all know, the building project, multiple building project proposals have been in place since I've been here for the high school. We made a decision, after, I think, a few attempts of doing the renovation for the science labs. Yeah, this is the next. That's my
Do you have slides for this, or?
What's that, the next? So this is, what's that?
I just wondered why you weren't sitting there if you don't have
because
slides.
I'm gonna be up here
Gotcha,
with
okay.
with the other group for the
All
next
good.
agenda item. So we decided to go, working with Steve Perkholm at the time and central office staff, we put together, I think, a great proposal for both the NHS roof project along with the knock project. So that was in the works, and then we got a call over the summer that MSBA was gonna come out and visit the site, and Mr. James McSweeney, who's taken over for Steve, has a lot of experience in buildings. He was instrumental in taking the group, not only to the school, showing the plans, but we're also up on the roof. No one got hurt or fell, which is good. And then the group from MSBA said they would get back to us around end of October, and we got notice, I think, last week that we were accepted. We had to do a webinar last Tuesday, which I provided some information to the school committee along. The mayor also got a notice. So we're excited for that process. We're in the pipeline, and then I'm going to have Mr. McSweeney kind of talk to everyone what the next steps will be. This will be obviously a joint venture of city council, the mayor, and then also the school committee. So why don't you come on up, Mr. McSweeney?
Thank you, Superintendent Gallagher. Thank you, school committee, for having me here tonight. So it is great news that we're moving on to the next step, but it is just the next step. So part of that next step is we're going to be doing a schematic design with the MSBA. Part of that is they've sent us a bunch of forms to fill out. There'll be some virtual meetings as well as some site visits that they'll be coming out. They're long meetings. We'll be meeting with the principals as well as our leadership team and facility staff, training for tours of the building. And it's really an in-depth into what the schools are and how they're being used. And it's not just for part of this accelerated repair program, but also the MSBA getting an idea of where all the schools in the entire state are and how they're being used and the numbers and a lot of that background information. So there'll be a lot of that happening over the next 30 to 60 days. Part of this accelerated repair program is now our commission date, as they're calling it, is December 2nd. So from that date, there's certain timelines that we'll have to meet. So within 90 days, we'll have to have a commitment from the city to support the financial aspect of the schematic design. And then within 120 days of that same date, we'll have to have that in writing and submitted to them. If we miss any of these deadlines and dates, we'll get pushed out of the program. So if there are some more important things coming up that we'll have to make sure we meet, in working with facility staff and some front office staff, we've already started filling out roughly a 32-sheet Excel document that they forwarded to us, asking for a lot of information on the schools. Anything from number of students to number of classrooms, restrooms, how the buildings are used, years, other information. So we're trying to stay on top of that and trying to stay ahead of a lot of the deadlines so that when we do get notified that they're coming up for the site visits, or when we do get notified about meetings, we're ready for it. So that's part of where we're at right now. It is still early in this operation and it's part of the project, but I think we're in good shape for all that. So, any questions?
I know it's early. Do you have a sense of the scale? I think it was in here, but how many applications there were, how many schools submitted?
So I don't remember how many were actually submitted, but accepted. There were 70 projects over 37 communities. So we have two what they call projects in our one community. So So again, 37 communities, 70 projects were accepted into this next step.
And do you have a sense if that's kind of similar to most years?
The accelerated repair program has not been around for a couple of years. They kind of did away with it. Out of those 37 projects, only 13 are roof projects.
Okay. That's helpful, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And obviously, we'll keep everyone informed as we get more details throughout that process. Our next aspect, there's a couple things. We're going to be talking about our annual report off of the strategic plan, which we've provided you. But I've been talking about this Superintendent Advisory Council for a couple of years. So this is a subcommittee that I created, and really looking, I think, from across the district with various parents and stakeholders, that each month we meet and we talk about not only just the schools, but they've been really instrumental for me in providing different lenses as we do different projects. So as we begin budget process, we do a lot of protocols to get input from this group. Also, our annual report has been just extremely well received. And that all stemmed from this group. As we were talking about communicating with the public and communicating with the school community, this group said, Sean, you got all these great things going on. People need to know about these things. So that was our conversation last year, and they assisted us with really compiling a lot of the great things that's happening in Newburyport. So I just want to credit them for all of their work and commitment to our monthly meetings, because I think ultimately it gives us a better product as we present different aspects of the school community to the general public. So I want to thank them, and for this year, instead of me just going through the report, which I will, so it won't be, I'll try not to be that long. But what I also wanted to do is have them just speak towards some of the things that we've had in the district going on over the past few years that's actually has an impact on them, their families, and the community. So I'm going to call up a few of my members to come on up. Similar to like a school council, this is like my advisory council. So why don't you all come on up? I don't know if I have, I don't know, Ray, you want to go first? Sure. And then we'll go first out? Yeah. Start and line up. So we'll probably just have Ray, then Mary Ann, then Scott, and then Emily and Nicole. So, all right, so take it away. I don't know what they're going to say, but let's see what happens. Hopefully it works out.
Well, I have it written down, so I'm not going to ramble too long. So for those that I don't know, I'm Ray Feltz. I'm based on Boyd Drive in Newburyport. My wife Tara and I have 3 daughters who have all been through public schools. One's graduated, the other 2 are in high school now. And after the last year of joining the advisory council meetings, I've really kind of come away with 2 observations I just want to share with everybody. The first is around technology. So I have a pretty unique viewpoint here. I work at Google, worked at Google the last 8 years down in Kendall Square in Cambridge. And I will say what strikes me about Newburyport is they're doing an excellent job of technology as I see it across all the customers I work with, their companies, their libraries, their schools. So really kind of set the bar here around technology. Our students are using devices they'll keep using in college. I've observed that with my own kids. And probably more importantly is how the teachers are using these devices to kind of enhance what they're doing with students. So one example of that is augmented reality. I saw with my own eyes a couple demos from one of the teachers, Mr. Sheridan, who kind of showed how students can dissect a frog on an iPad. And that, to me, is really cutting edge. I mean, my daughter's a nursing student in college at the University of South Carolina, and they don't have anything like this in college. And that's one of the leading nursing programs. So really cool stuff on the technology front here at Newburyport. So that's number one. And then number 2 to me is soft skills. So I do a lot of hiring at Google, Obviously, you know, you want to hire smart people to do well in school, but the big gap I see out there is new grads that maybe don't have the soft skills. They're not demonstrating, they have empathy, they're not showing leadership skills. So big gap that I've noticed Newburyport has really emphasized early on, as early as it gets here in this public school. So that is very cool from my point of view. And lastly, just after sitting in these meetings, I would say Portia Graduate is the common thread in a lot of the cool things that Newburyport's doing. And I would just recommend we keep doubling down in this area. So, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marianne Vesey. I live on Kent Street, and I had a long-term career in mental health. I'm here to speak about the school system support of social-emotional learning. Over the past 10 years, we've seen positive changes on the National Youth Risk Behavior Survey, such as decreased use of substances, which is great. However, there have been increases in students' experiences of violence, signs of poor mental health, plus suicidal thoughts and behavior. Our daily world is complicated by tremendous loss, such as individual challenges of disease, divorce, or death in a family. Regular events of mass casualties due to gun violence and or climate disasters, and messages of horrific disrespect on social media and between children as they test the boundaries of behavior. We can debate the causes of all of this at length, but that will not change the fact that the schools simply have to deal with the impact of all of this on individual students and school environments. Newburyport School's vision is to create a portrait of a graduate who is physically, socially, and emotionally well. Only when this is experienced can youth fully learn and grow. This can only come with a huge perceptual and practice change in the school's culture, which requires an enormous investment in staff training. I truly support and applaud the response of the Newburyport Public Schools in providing a positive culture for our youth and families. They do this in ways such as, 1, offering a true bridge for children to return to school following something like a significant mental health or medical absence. 2, having staff who are trauma-informed, where they resist a punitive response to a problematic behavior while providing skills and supports to manage difficult feelings. 3, offering restorative justice between individuals and school environments, foregoing the more typical response of shame and punishment. 4, provide an intensive outreach approach to homeless families and absentee kids. 5, inviting and welcoming family participation and peer supports, which is time intensive and can feel frightening to many school systems. 6, having multiple opportunities to really know others in our world, such as fully integrating students and families from different cultures, offering academic and travel exposure, as we heard earlier, implementing book groups with senior citizens, and many other examples of that. The bottom line is that children cannot be cared for if the adults are not caring for themselves and those around them. Children can actually learn when they feel safe, respected, and are emotionally regulated. By responding fully to the margins of those who are disaffected in our schools and creating environments to truly support them, we care more fully for all people. This is the kind of environment in which children learn and thrive.
All right. Thank you. And then Scott, why don't you come on up?
Hi everybody, it's Scott Ewell. I have 2 kids in the school system, one in 8th grade, one in 5th grade, I think. But Superintendent Gallagher asked me to say a few words about the student-led conferences in the school. So there's a new experience for us, I guess, in 6th grade with our older son, Olson. And honestly, the first one was a little rough. We didn't really know what we were walking into, so we walked in and we weren't quite sure what was happening. We sort of missed the perspective of talking to the teacher about their opinion of how our son was doing. And so we kind of left us a little like, like are we not talking to the teacher about students anymore? And then, following up, of course, you can still talk to teachers about students. And then last year, the 7th grade, we had another student-led conference where we went in not knowing what to expect. And it was a totally different experience. I think the teachers were more prepared on how to guide the students. But what we observed was our son Olson, observing what his learning opportunities were, measuring his strengths relative to those opportunities and also his weaknesses, and watching him put together some tactics about how he could improve. And I think back to when I was in 7th grade, and I just kind of did the work, and math was easy and English was hard and social studies was boring and the German teacher was mean, and you kind of just got through it, Then I was also thinking about my day job. In the last 10 years, I've hired a lot of people, 130 people over the last 10 years, and in that time frame, there were there's 8 rock stars, and by rock stars I mean people you give them a problem, they make it go away, they tell you what's going on, they ask smart questions, they don't hide things, they integrate well with the team, and think about why they're rock stars. I mean, they are self-aware, and they know how to identify problems and how to solve them. And looking at the student-led conferences, it was an interesting experience of watching our son learn that, or learn how to prepare for that, and then present it to us so we can actually see him performing that. And it opens up opportunities too. I see him doing that. Now when I have a work experience and someone's doing a great job or a not great job, it's like, hey, this is like that thing you do at school, but in real life. And it was I think, a very powerful experience for our family. And just, important that on top of all the curriculum and the learning, that they're learning this soft skill stuff that really matters in real life. And on another note, Sean didn't ask me to talk about this, but I thought it was important, but we're lucky to have 2 kids that are really engaged in school. They're big nerds. They love reading, they like tests, and they think they're fun. And that's not the situation with every family. But we try really hard not to push them into things. We want them to experience lots of things and kind of bring them to us and say, I want to learn more about this. And I've been just really excited about how they've had the experience in the Newburyport school system. My older son, Olson, discovered theater in 6th grade. And he was like, I want to be the theater manager. Now, in the fall, he's a theater manager for the Badger, and he's really excited about it. Come watch. And then my younger son, they had the instrument petting zoo last spring, where they could go experience instruments, and he walked around like he found a trombone, which is the largest, strangest, besides the cello, thing you can pull out. I mean, he's so excited, and it's loud, but he's really excited. And I think, they would be, without all these extras, I don't think they'd be as engaged in school. I don't think they'd be having as much fun. I think we'd probably have to supplement them with more private stuff or find a private school that had broader experiences. But instead, they're here with their friends. They're super engaged and being exposed to a lot of important things. Art. Oh, it's a painter. If you didn't have art, it would be a problem. And all that with the curriculum. So I just wanted to appreciate you all for the experience that you're helping build. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily? All right.
Hi, my name is Emily Strower, and I'm a parent of 2 children receiving special education services in the district. I'm also a former special education teacher. Tonight, I'm here to speak about how the district's strategic plan has affected my children and family, most specifically in the area of teaching and learning and supports, and why I think we need to continue our vision of celebrating the whole child. My son has 2 genetic conditions that cause intellectual disability. He uses a communication device to speak. My greatest fear for Ben when he started school was that he would be put in a program that did not honor him as a learner and as an individual. I have seen many special education programs throughout my career that equate life skills with running a laundry machine or counting change, and do not provide access to comprehensive literacy instruction. As a parent, my greatest goal for Ben is to have self-determination. Improving his communication skills is critical. Right now, Ben is limited to the number of pictures on his device. But his communication will greatly be expanded if he can phonetically spell. So any other words he needs to know, he needs to be able to at least spell the first 3 letters of them. Many districts, many districts, are still behind the times on this and offer only sight word instruction for students with significant disabilities. I'm so proud and relieved that Newburyport has not been like most districts, and that he has access to instruction in phonemic awareness and phonics. There's still more work to be done to create comprehensive literacy programs for our students with significant special needs, but these are great strides that will have a huge impact on his life. And also, as an educator, I just love that we do foundations, and all of the training we've done for dyslexia has been incredible. My daughter is at the Mullen School, and while she can access the curriculum at grade level, she needs supports and accommodations. Her MCAS scores fell into the partially meeting expectations level last year, which was a drop. But it really honestly causes me little worry. Every week, her 5th grade teacher, Ms. Cusser, sends home a Friday folder. In the folder is a copy of all the week's assessments. For a larger assessment, she includes a detailed rubric. I wish I had it, 'cause it's so impressive. That indicates which questions correlate to which specific curriculum standards. She also has the students review and correct any mistakes that they made with a teacher on a correction form to ensure that they understand. My daughter came home, pulled out her folder, instead of saying, "Oh, this is what I got right, this is, look at my score." She said, "Mom, look at this mistake I made that I was able to fix." Now she's learning the content that she needs to learn, and she's also learning to reflect and face her mistakes head on. I would take Ms. Cusser's feedback over an MCAS score any day of the week, and I am relieved that we don't live in a district that teaches to the test. In the previous district I worked in, it was common to spend about 3 to 4 weeks preparing for an MCAS test. This included practice tests as well as quickly cramming in content that would be properly taught in May or June. So if fractions weren't until May or June, they would do a quick week of fractions and be like, "We'll get to it later." And they had higher scores. It creates higher scores, but it robs kids of instructional time and creates unnecessary stress. I hope we continue as a district to see the whole child and not get caught up on MCAS scores. Our family meets twice a year with doctors at Boston Children's Hospital Developmental Medicine Center, and the feedback we get is always so positive. They review the kids' IEPs and ask, "How did you get this? We don't see this from other districts." Both kids are doing better academically than they expected, and the IEP is only a small part of the story. Our kids are doing well because of the staff at our schools and how they honor my kids as learners and human beings. It's the whole child approach that provides quality instruction in an environment that supports kids so they can actually access that instruction. It includes the revived band and chorus program at the Mullen, led by Miss Rico, that makes my daughter so excited to go to school every day, and the efforts of Miss Spiegel, one of the great speech and language pathologists at the Bresdenham, who made sure that all the preschool classrooms had dolls with adaptive accessories like insulin pumps and hearing aids and communication devices. It is the commitment to keep kids with disability in our district. I was so thrilled to see that out-of-district placements reduced by 39% last year. Inclusion makes everyone better and keeps important resources in our schools. I commend our district for making this a priority and hope this will continue in the future.
Thank you. All right, appreciate that. Ms. Nicole? This is the homework you passed on?
Yes, this is Hi, everybody. Folders are coming apart. I'm Nicole Marquise Chabot, and I live on Congress Street, and we'll just do it. Okay. I lived here for 24 years and moved here from Manhattan, single, fabulous, loved the city. Yes, it was in Manhattan, but it was a city that was fabulous to me as single, engaged, and married, and now having 2 children. I have a son, Dante, who is a junior at the school system here at Newburyport, and a daughter, Simone. When Sean asked me to be part of this council, I have the same narrative that you all do. It is truly an honor to be a part of the families in this community. And I get a little bit choked up because my daughter is dyslexic. And so she was in the 2nd grade when they came to me and said, this girl is not slow to read. There's a problem. So we did have her tested, and I used that word dyslexic, and I should have had, this was very short term coming in here, I should have had a shirt made that said dyslexia, because I used that word and I told her to use that word all the time. But it wasn't until she found her voice, and that was during COVID, to be perfectly honest with you, because she learned how to advocate for herself. But the reason why I'm up here is that there was talk of her going out of the district. But for me, she was a very, very well-adjusted child. She had the same friends since the Brown School. She danced, she cooked, she had a baking business, but she was so scared to be in the classroom. And it took all the teachers here that never gave up on her. And that's the message that I want to tell you, that I could have taken her out of here in 2 seconds. So her problem was, or her weakness was, that she would get very nervous because she's sitting next to her friend that looks and acts and does all the same social things that she does, and then they're putting her in a classroom that she couldn't keep up with. And so we got her aides in the classroom, and that was never a problem. They helped her. And I know I'm jumping all over the place because it's such a success story. When I see this binder, I would walk into an IEP meeting, and that's why I grabbed it, because it was ridiculous and things would fall out of it. And I never ever brought an attorney to a meeting, and I knew that we all were there because teachers want to work with you, and especially in this district. Everyone wanted to help Simone. Everyone said, okay, we'll create an office for her, because I said she will not go in that classroom, she would rather clean toilets. And they worked with her. She graduated with honors. She took AP Pre-Calc. She got accepted to Providence College, where she is thriving on stage in the dance company, really making a difference. Now, when I look back at her 8-year-old self, she said she wanted to be a school teacher. And you know why she wanted to be a school teacher? Because the teachers in this community loved her, cared for her, and went the extra mile to make her feel comfortable. So she doesn't want to be a teacher anymore. She wants to work with children in mental health because she feels it's so important to keep building children up, because that's what she was here. She had fabulous adjustment counselors all through the school. So you're asking, how did she get to take AP classes her senior year? So her IEP was then adjusted and became a 504. So she had to learn to advocate for herself. So with that being said, now in college, she knows how to advocate for herself. She knows how to go to those professors, ask them questions on how she can be a successful student and make a positive impact in her university. She is also a co-president of Best Buddies and represented Newburyport High School with Best Buddies. So all the teachers here made a true impact, and it's an honor. I do have a son who is not dyslexic. He is thriving in school, thriving so well. And people have said to me, oh, why isn't he at Andover? Why isn't he at Exeter? Well, we live a block from here. And he's like, why would I go anyplace else? It's right there. And again, the schools are giving him everything he needs to succeed and be successful. If anyone wants to ask me any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But I would have to say that I have known Sean for a very long time. My background is not in education. I was in PR and marketing in New York City for about 20 years. Sean and I met, I was a gymnastics coach at Salem High School. So I love kids, and now I teach dance over at the Tannery in Newburyport. So the thing about children is if you tell them they can do something, they will be able to do it. And this school did that. And I always said to my daughter, you just be you and you are going to succeed, and she has done a great job with that. If you tell them they're going to do well, they will do well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.
All right, I just want to, once again, thank everyone.
Anybody want this binder? Let me tell you, I don't need it anymore. This is really good
Thank you,
stuff.
everyone, for coming in.
That's awesome. I just want to thank our community members and parents for coming out. I'm going to go through our report, but it's the feedback that I received from you all that just help us, even make things even better. And then the other great piece is this advisory council brings different lenses to the table. Obviously, the parent lens is very, very important to us, but we have some brilliant people on this, especially Scott with engineering, Marianne with her background, teacher, Nicole's marketing, Scott and Ray. So as we move forward with technology and things like that, they're more than willing to set up we're going to set up a subcommittee for that too. So I just want to thank them. I also have about 20 other members. So as we go through this report, some of these programs that we talk about in a report, you can just see the impact that it's been having on some of our families. So thank you all very much for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we go through our year in review, we shared this actually on Tuesday, and Vice Chair Hall was there, and we received feedback from the committee saying that we need to ease into the report. We just jumped in with a lot of data and academic successes, so I appreciate their input as we kind of go through this. As Emily was saying, this is really celebrating the whole child, which is really tied into our strategic plan in the Portrait of a Graduate. I won't read through all of this because we do have more agenda items. But here are some of the samples of some of the students that came and talked to you all last year. I think in the spring, the Portrait of a Graduate. And part of our advisory council, Diane Stiefel, who's actually she directs documentaries, gave us the idea of the posters were great, and then she suggested maybe you could have the students do a documentary. So we're piloting 17 new students or ambassadors of the Portrait Graduate, and they're in the process of doing those documentaries that we'll share with the entire community. So that was some great feedback from them. As we just go through some of the highlights, so it's hard to put everything together, but we just touch base on, I think, throughout the year and throughout the success from last year. Just some of the academic highlights. As we were talking about the iReady classroom, we implemented that last year, and that was one of our big investments. The special ed programming, we've been talking about the investments that we have made, especially in the language-based program, Orton Gillingham training, and focus on dyslexia, as Nicole was talking about. So we reduced our out-of-district placement by 39%. A lot of those programs are now up and running strong in all of our schools. So that's something that we're very, very proud of. And then the Orton Gillingham reading program, all of those teachers that were trained, is just not for the students with dyslexia, but they have reading strategies that they're sharing with the mainstream teachers also. So it's been a great train-the-trainer program for us. Foundations shows some positive results. Just in the phonics program for our DIBELS, you can see that the decoding and reading skills are increasing for our youngest students. The PSAT, so this was something that we implemented with support of the school committee a few years ago, if you all recall, that all students will take the PSATs from their sophomore year. And these are comparing apples to apples, so you have the same students from their sophomore year to their junior year in those scores. 8th grade students, we've been talking about the utilization of multimedia, going back to Ray's point with the advancement of technology. So we have a lot of our 8th grade students who are utilizing podcasting, and that's happening at the Mullen and the NOC. So we had 160 eighth graders interview adult community members, which also bridges the gaps from one generation to the next in their podcast assignment. Also, very proud, we continue, the world language continues to grow. This was something that was not district-wide, and after a few years, we're bringing back our world language program. And so what we're seeing now is, since it's been up and running and implementing it at the middle school, we now have higher levels of at the high school. So you see in Spanish 5, you see in AP Spanish now, and that's something we haven't had in many, many years. Credit Mr. Wolf and the focus on advanced placement. So this is advanced placement, not just for our goals that every student before they leave Newburyport High School take an advanced placement or a dual enrollment class, and you can see we were recognized for the increase of advanced placement students at the high school, but also still maintaining high scores there too. This is something that we're extremely proud of. This is a lot of work, a lot of training, a lot of trust, but really increasing student voice and student leadership. So we've, throughout the district, have provided our students with true leadership opportunities. We're just highlighting a few of these here. For the high school, the CLIPS mentoring program, so we have mentors that were trained. The high school students were trained, and it's almost train-the-trainer model for our students. So under the leadership of 20 executive members, if you recall, when the freshmen came into the beginning of the school year, they were working with mentors, upperclassmen mentors. 480 NOC middle school students and their parents, the student-led conferences, which is something we continue to enhance, as Scott was talking. It's a different, for a parent, when the students are telling you, or your children telling you what their strengths are, what areas they need to work on, and then they develop a plan with you and the teacher, that's pretty impressive, and just really, very, very effective. And then our Mullen, as the leadership throughout the district, 70 NHS students and NOC students continue to work with the administration at both schools and assist with different, implementation of rules, and we have students at the table making a difference. As we always talk about, partners help us grow. So the PTO, the NEF have been instrumental in enhancing a lot of our programming. I think these are all wonderful pieces. I'm not going to read through them all, but as you know, senior internship program, or the internship program, it's not just for seniors at the high school, is increasing every year, and these are last year's highlights. So we had 115 partners that worked with our high school students as part of a true internship program, which is wonderful. I think the other piece is that's part of our vision, is that every student will be in a college or AP class, experience college level classes. And then on the second piece of that is every student will have a true comprehensive internship before they graduate. We always talk about the multi-tiered system of support. So here are just some aspects of that, what's been implemented. And then, one highlight as we work with a chronic absenteeism rate, you can see that some of these interventions, working with those students and families, has been paying off. Innovation, other aspect, innovation in teaching and learning. So as we all know, and I've talked about the Career Pathways grant, we received $75,000 last year. As Mr. Wolf said, we'll be writing a couple more pathways. This will also give students opportunities to receive, college, not only the college credit, but the pathways, opportunities for the vocational experiences. Our teacher led the green team there. I just can't say enough about them. They were here, we honored them, I think, a few weeks ago. Investments in our place-based learning throughout the district all last year, and then Portrait of a Graduate ambassadors. Really having the students define, bringing that Portrait of a Graduate characteristics to life and what it really means to them. So learning beyond the school day, this is, I think, other areas that we continue the learning outside of school. And there's a whole list of aspects here, but I'm really proud of the investment and the emphasis not only on the world language piece, but really on our performing arts and theater piece. We're increasing throughout the district aspects of our music program. We've brought back a fall play both at the Knock and at the high school, and also the 2 spring musicals, and the Mullen musical also. So I think this is also one area over the past few years that we've been emphasizing, and last year we're seeing more of an increase there. And then obviously the celebration of the art festival and sailboat program. There's just so many programs that we could highlight, but what was it? Only have 8 pages, right, to get everything in. The other piece, reimagining organizations, operations. So I think this has been, I want to credit central office and division here, because we've really pretty much added a lot of this reimagining our operations to make things better, security systems, without costing additional funding necessarily, especially with the student services redesign. That we'll probably highlight that next year, because we'll have a whole year of that, but that's been something that's been very, very helpful. And then just our graduates, onward, forward. Just really 89% of the students went to a 2 or 4 year school. 48% of the students attending public college, and then 33 students in dual enrollment. So last year, if you recall, we had one student also receive an associate's degree with all of the dual enrollment courses that are being offered. And then this is the increase of the advanced coursework, AP dual enrollment technology. So that's 115 students completed at least one AP course. And the percentage of the qualifying scores increased to 88%. So not only are the students participating, but they're scoring very, very well. And then just education leading the way. I just want to highlight some of our teachers and administrators are out at the national level presenting. As Scott was talking about the student-led conferences, Mr. Marcos and his team did a presentation out in Nashville regarding that and what that looked like, really highlighting student voice. As we all know, Ms. Rossi and Ms. Sokolowski went to the ASCD conference and presented trauma-sensitive schools. And then we just kind of, at the end for a summary, just really highlighted on the left side some of the investments that we've made last year, and then some of the outcomes, just to kind of summarize pretty much a lot of the work that we've been doing. And I think, that's next. That's next. So that's kind of our report, and once again, instead of me being up here and just kind of going through everything, it's, our council wanted to come out and kind of just highlight some of the things that meant something to them. So, any questions on that, or? Anything from our students with student leadership? They're experiencing it right here.
Put you on the spot. What does the Portrait of a Graduate mean to you?
I think I've probably gone over it at some point in like my TV in my homeroom, but
it all comes together.
Give me a day and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. So, all right, so no questions? I think we're ready for the next agenda item.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can have a seat unless you just really want to stay up there.
I don't think I'm presenting.
No? No. All right, let me just get to my.
I think I'm off.
Okay, good job.
Okay, actually, oh, perfect, you have it up there in case people want to look at it.
I can scroll through the agenda if you guys would like me to.
No, that's good, thank you. Okay, so just a little context for this proposal. Since our last meeting, we received a communication from the superintendent saying that he's going to discontinue the CISL committee, curriculum, instruction, and student life, with an eye to perhaps giving those presentations to the full committee.
Correct.
And then more recently, the Mayor Reardon wanted to submit this proposal to have our own subcommittee, instruction and learning subcommittee. He's not here tonight, so I guess we could still proceed with the conversation. I don't know if you want to kind of direct that, Ms. Walker, since you sent this in.
Yeah, I can
what
start.
Your thoughts are?
I can
or?
give some context. I think
Okay.
This is actually Member Higgins started this process. I think it was in 2023 after input from our retreat as a school committee that suggested we consider forming a curriculum type subcommittee of the school committee. And the outcome of the retreat discussion was to then put together a proposal for a subcommittee that would be focused a little bit on not the sort of programmatic aspects of curriculum, like what curriculum we choose for the schools, but more sort of how we're measuring the outcomes and what initiatives we're guiding the district overall on. So this went through, it was submitted to the school committee and then was referred to the policy subcommittee where we had further conversation, and the superintendent was part of that conversation, the Member Higgins was part of that conversation, and other members of the school committee. And so we revised it further and came back to the school committee with this proposal. I don't remember exactly when, but ultimately there was not 100% agreement from the school committee at that time, in part because of the existence of the CISL, which is the Curriculum, Instruction, and Student Life Committee that was actually a subcommittee of the superintendent and not the school committee. So a few of us served on that CISL for about 1.5 years, and then it went away for a variety of reasons. And so recently we've had conversations about reviving this idea. And I would defer to Member Higgins with any additional comments on this. The process going forward would be to decide as a school committee if we would like to form this subcommittee, and then we would just agree on the purview of the subcommittee. We can also set time limits. We can say it's formed for a period of time to evaluate outcomes, or we can say it's a standing committee, then we would probably want to add it to our policies, but we don't have to. So,
yeah, would you like to weigh in?
We've gone over this a few times. Thank you, Member Walker, for that information. In my opinion, the main functions of a school committee are to evaluate the superintendent, to set policy, and to approve the budget. But all of that is in service of student learning, making sure that students are learning. And what are they learning? A wide variety of things. A whole child approach is very important, but all of that is in service of student learning. So I think if we are going to have a subcommittee on policy and on budget and on evaluation, then we should also have a subcommittee that is focused on student learning, kind of diving into those issues and having a really good sense of all the things that the district is doing, planning on doing, and kind of setting the course. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess my recommendation is, because the mayor isn't here, is that I would suggest that anybody has questions, they ask it, but that we hold on voting on this until the mayor is here.
I also didn't indicate a vote
Yeah.
for tonight because I figured this was just kind of
Yeah.
brainstorming. Did everyone get a chance to read the email from Dave Hockheiser? Okay, because he had some interesting feedback on how to maybe develop this a little bit more. I didn't review it right before I came here, but it was worth a read if you didn't get a chance, just with other things to include here. I guess my only question is about what we want to see as a whole committee versus what would be going to this subcommittee. For people who aren't on the subcommittee, I just wouldn't want them to miss out on any of the, big picture. I guess I'm thinking specifically of data presentations. Like next meeting, we'll be getting the MCAS data presentation. I would advocate to continue that as something for the whole committee. So I don't know what people's thoughts are there, if maybe the idea is that we could get like a little more in the weeds in this. Maybe that's not the best expression, but be a little more detail oriented in this subcommittee. Would there be any voting, anything that this committee would be voting on?
Well, as a subcommittee, you can't vote. You can vote on recommendations to the full school committee, but
Right.
there's no decisions that are made at the subcommittee level that can't be done
That
by
couldn't
the full school
stand.
committee. So, to your point, I think the language of this was revised to basically emphasize the fact that the subcommittee would be reviewing data, providing input to superintendent, but that ultimately presentations would then be put in front of the school committee of the whole. And again, but I do think no decision will be made. But I do think there's some benefit to having the opportunity to ask and vet some of the data and get a little bit more into the details behind the data, so that when it does come to the full school committee, those questions have been asked and the administration knows to be prepared to answer some of those questions.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So that's the point of this final bullet here then?
Yeah.
Spotlight presentations to the full committee, that's
Correct.
okay.
And even, the full school committee can still have those full presentations regardless. I think this is just, and there was even discussion that this wouldn't necessarily be a committee that meets every month, it just meets at periodic times during the school year to help inform some of those data presentations.
Great, anyone else? Yep. You seemed like you were going to say something. Mr. Boger? No?
Nope, not me.
Brian's not.
Just picking up a pen.
Yeah, no, I suppose I don't see anything in the way of this. So, yeah, despite the mayor's absence, he expressed some urgency. He really would like to see this implemented in January. So I would just encourage that we mitigate further discussion and try to move forward to have it in place as soon as possible.
Well, the membership would have to be determined by the mayor, so, we have time to set this up. I don't think there's, I don't know that I agree that it would be nice to have it set up by January, but I don't think if we vote on it now versus voting on it next meeting.
No, I'm sure it's just, we're not going to vote on it tonight. I
Yeah.
wasn't suggesting we vote on it tonight. I'm just saying that we should accelerate the process as much as possible so that we can do everything so that this is in place as soon as possible. The beginning of the year, we were under the impression that the CISL was going to be in place, and now we're in November and it's not in place, and that's fine, but we've now had 5 separate discussions on this. The potential of this subcommittee, and then why it fell apart, and then it reemerged as a potential, and I think that the mayor's trying vigorously to actually implement this, and I think we should support him as much as possible. And that's a great discussion about how a subcommittee, what their appropriate role is and what their policies are, and I think Ms. Hall is doing an excellent job in sort of delineating exactly what the roles of that subcommittee would be, but I would reiterate that I think we should do everything possible to get this in place as soon as possible.
Any other questions, concerns, suggested revisions? All right, then I think we can plan on putting it as, as written on our next agenda with a vote, and move forward with a vote.
Okay. And I
Yeah.
would say also, if people do want to suggest revisions in the interim, I'm
Sure,
happy to take
yeah.
that responsibility of making suggested amendments through track changes. So, for example, if you wanted to
I
incorporate.
think I might want to read over that email
Yeah,
again and
yeah.
just see if there's anything.
Sure. So I'm
Yeah,
happy to
okay.
take that on. If people want to send me any revisions.
Thank you for taking that on.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Subcommittee updates, Mr. Callahan.
FinCom
Is
met
there-
on October 10th. I don't have those minutes yet. I hope to get them on Tuesday from Phil, who will be in the district. We talked about the budget process in general, and that conversation kind of went to the communications subcommittee conversation that's happening with the city council. Went over the GoFans fundraising for student fees and, fundraising student fees and tickets for events, which, much like Ms. Walker, I was like, we have to accept cash no matter what. There's no way to not do that, so we're doing that, which is great. And then we went over the student activity accounts list, and that was really about it.
Okay.
Can I ask you, just
Sure. Yes.
what is the outcome of the student activities list? Is that an audit, or what is it?
Yeah, it's not quite an audit. We just saw the list of current balances.
Current
basically.
balances.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to have that?
Oh yeah, I was going to ask that too. So we got that in paper, which is not my favorite, but can we get a PDF emailed to us with those documents? That'd be great.
Yes.
Thank
If we
you.
could, I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms.
Oh, and I don't
Walker.
know, I'm sorry, and I don't know when we're going to meet next. Technically, we have the 14th will be our next meeting. Ms. Hall may not be able to be there. We've not figured out who the
We could still hold the meeting.
interim
Yeah.
Phil is. So I don't know if it's wise to even have it without that entity being involved.
No, we could still have a meeting, because we can pull the finances, the what you're looking for, and plus it'll be after the joint meeting too.
Day after.
Yeah, so it'll be
Yeah,
good
that'll give probably
be good to
plenty to talk
debrief.
about.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you okay with us having just Andy and I at that meeting if you're not able to make it to that
Yeah,
morning
and
of the
I
14th?
mean, we can talk about it, but if you want to move it later, I could be there. I could do a 5 o'clock meeting. I just can't, I'm just
Okay.
not free that
All
morning.
right, we can talk about that after
Yeah.
this. then. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Walker, we have some first reads here.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I'm using two devices because my laptop's about to die. So the first one is Public Gifts to School, which is KCD. This was one that we had revised, I believe, as an outcome of our audit, but then just wanted to double check things, I think. And yes, this went in front of the Finance Subcommittee and the Business Administrator and so forth. So you'll see in your packet, the edits are in mine, they're red, underlined. Hopefully yours
They're red,
is too.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I think some of the key highlights are the inclusion of the explanation of the types of, or the size of gifts that would go in front of the school committee and/or the finance subcommittee. So I think it's worth just going over this paragraph, the beginning one. The superintendent would have the authority to accept on behalf of the school district grants and gifts, including offers of equipment or money from outside groups and organizations with longstanding affiliations with the district. And then the examples are carried forward, the NEF, PTO, Alumni Association, for the schools when the gift is of educational value. So again, I think looking at that gives these a little bit of a caveat that if the organization is not one that has given before, it would come in front of the school committee. The superintendent still does have the discretion to bring any gift or in front of the school committee if he doesn't feel that he feel comfortable approving it. And then for those gifts that he is approving, will inform the school committee via the finance subcommittee of any gifts received that exceed $2,500. Anything under $2,500 would be reported in our financials, but doesn't have to be reported to the school committee via the finance subcommittee. And then it just reiterates that any grant or gift from a group of any size, the grant or gift of any size from any group that does not have a longstanding affiliation with the district would have to come in front of the school committee for approval. We did review this also with the attorney and got advice on what, language to include and so forth. I wouldn't say this is exactly what the attorney said to do, but it follows that advice. So then the rest of it's more or less just clarifications of our existing wording, and then we did remove the ability of the superintendent to accept anonymous donations. We just felt like that. How can you accept anonymous donation from a long-standing organization affiliated with the school? So if there is an anonymous situation, it would have to come in front of the school committee. Any questions? Anything I missed?
Nope.
Anything I missed?
Yeah.
My computer just died. All right. Any questions? That's it? Okay.
Okay, well, I guess my only question would be, not specifically, but generally, does that happen?
What's that?
Well,
Anonymous gift?
Yeah.
Since I've been here, it hasn't happened.
I think it's probably pretty rare.
Yeah.
I think it's more likely that it comes through the NEF, in which case it's a different
Yeah.
process.
No, I think it'd be great if you did. I was just curious.
Yeah. Well, if people listen, we will accept anonymous gifts.
We will.
We're encouraging it. That's-
We will. I mean, let's not be too, yeah.
For $2,499.
Well, no, any anonymous gift, regardless of the amount,
Goes
would have
through.
to come to the school
Sorry.
committee.
Right.
So let's not be too.
I was too cavalier there. That's true.
Okay, so the next item for first reading is BHE. We had already revised this, I believe, we'd already revised it in 2023. But there was a new iteration of this that the MASC had released, and so we reviewed it comparatively. Mostly there was no change. I think the one thing we did realize is that the last paragraph has way more detail than we needed, because it's not our policy as a district to set up some kind of alternative email account situation, and so we just said, let's just eliminate all that extra language. We're just going to say what we already do, which is, therefore, in order to ensure compliance, the district shall provide district email addresses, which are archived. So we're not setting up like somebody's personal Gmail account and figuring out that, and we're not providing hard copies to people who are still anti-email. So any questions on that?
That looks good.
Okay. The next one is File EHAA, which is a new policy on district security relating to technology. And this is related to, again, a recommendation on MASC. As I mentioned, it's a new policy that they've recently put out there. It's related to overall district security. I think it's pretty much consistent with what our practices are, but we, as a policy committee, thought it would be good to have this in writing to support, particularly, I think, any investments that we make along these lines, and just make sure that we're being aware that data breach and data security is really important. Any questions about that? All right. And then the final item is for second reading, which is File JJF, which is student activity accounts. Again, you've seen a prior version of this for first reading. We had, at that time, suggested it go back again to this finance subcommittee and the business administrator, although it had already been reviewed, just to make sure there were no additional changes. And I received confirmation that there were no additional changes, so the complete version you see in front of you tonight is the final version. I'm not going to go through all the details because I actually don't remember all the details, but I'm happy to answer any questions, or we can have further discussion on any items if you're interested. I think some of the things to be aware of are the limits, the provisions related to the limits of 25,000 for counts, that there's an audit to be conducted, which I think we already do on an annual basis, and I think that's what you guys did the other day. And then just procedurally, what happens to student activity counts when they're inactive, and what happens if there's a deficit position. But this is consistent with DESE audit guidelines and MASC recommendations.
Great. I think you can make a motion for this one. We're doing the approval, right?
Yes. So I would move to approve the For second reading, which policy did we just say? JJF student activity counts as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
I
All
would
in
just say
favor?
thank you for all the work. It's a lot of work that's been going into this. So thank you to the whole committee, but Ms. Walker as well.
You're welcome.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And that
Right.
concludes my report.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Boger, over to you for communications update.
Yeah, we had a meeting last week, excuse me, I lost my voice, with Ms. Hall and Ms. Walker, and the superintendent, the assistant superintendent attended. We reviewed the budget listening session, which we all agreed was a success. I thought it would be a good idea to encourage having another one down the road. There's no plan for that, but that was not sort of part of the structure. So if there's interest, I think that, we could get even more members of the community in and hear from them. And then we talked and prepared a little bit for the meeting next week with the joint committee. And we've been reaching out to the city council president. And to be quite honest, it was a very freewheeling conversation that covered a lot. And the superintendent was very happy to share a lot of things with us that weren't necessarily on the agenda, so that was very much appreciated.
All right. Want to add anything, or I think we're good? All right, thank you. So we'll do the superintendent's report now.
All right. I'm just like flipping around here. I think just a couple of pieces. So the Go Fan ticket sales, so through, I think, last school committee meeting or the meeting before, we talked about the MIAA playoff system and, how, is there a go-around? And I think working, I'm not saying go-around MIAA, but I think what we decided, working with Mr. Antonelli and Mr. Richie Pace, who's assisting, is to provide opportunities for the middle school families to purchase. The parents can use the app if they want to come in a day, I think the day of or the day before. We're going to coordinate that this week, where a middle school parent can purchase a ticket, and then we'll give a ticket to the student, so the student won't have to use a cell phone or anything. So I think that's kind of a compromise, kind of a go-around through the MIAA. So they're still seeing on their end go fan purchase, but on our end, we'll make it accommodate for those families, for the middle school students who want to go to a home game. So we have some home games this week. Once our teams go off-site, though, and it's a neutral site, they won't be able to go. But at least for the home game, some of the students will be able to go. So I think that's a nice, from the feedback from school committee, I think that's a good solution for now, especially with the MIA playoff games. Business manager update.
Question about that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just before you move on, I was actually going to mention this in new business, but it follows so well with what you just said. The athletic director, and this is not a hard ask, I know there's an interim, but the athletic director previously in some other season was sending out updates on the playoffs to the community, and at least the school committee was on that. I really appreciated that because I don't have kids in the schools, and so I don't always know when those things are happening.
Okay.
So the Boston Globe actually ran today, MIAA football playoffs are out, and so I went and clicked the link and looked it up and found out we got a playoff game this Friday.
Yeah, we just found out, too.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things that I just don't,
Yeah.
I just wouldn't know when games are and when playoffs are, and so it's not a hard ask, but if the athletic director does have time or is sending those out, maybe the school committee could just be copied
Yes.
on, like, when those games are.
Yeah, we just found out today, because we didn't think that football was going to have a home game because they lost last Friday. So this afternoon is when we found out, but we'll definitely send a playoff update to the school community.
Yeah, just to put a plug in, Daily News does do coverage of all that, and we do have our athletic calendars on the app.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions on that? No? All right. Business managers, so we did go out to bid, so we did receive a couple bids. And I think what we'll do is tonight, just have a discussion, because there will be contract and things like that regarding that process. But I think we'll have a couple options, and hopefully we'll be able to solidify that position. And then just our negotiations, just in general, because Elizabeth Doyle's here, so I don't want to get myself in trouble. No, in general, we're interest-based bargaining, and we had our second session, and it went very well. We've come to agreement in a couple general areas, so I just want to thank the union and our team, because if you look around in other districts, it's not so what's the word? Friendly or collaborative. So right now, we're utilizing interest-based bargaining for our NTA, and then also interest-based bargaining for the IAs, and then we'll start that negotiation in December. So it's been positive, and hopefully we'll continue the process and get it done. Negotiating 3 contracts at this time, it's a big responsibility for all of us, so hopefully we'll get to the end and everyone will be happy. And I think that's it for my agenda items there.
Great.
Our next IBB meeting is on
16th?
19th.
19th.
Okay, so now we have our new follow-up section. Thank you, everyone, for submitting your items here. Michelle, I thought it made sense to put CPAC here as opposed to subcommittee updates, since it's not a subcommittee. Gives you a chance to ask questions or share any updates that you have there.
So the next event for CPAC is there's going to be a meet and greet with special ed administrators. It's going to take place on November 14th at the Knock Middle School Library, and it's from 5:30 to 6:30. Also, during that meeting, there'll be a CPAC officer election. So we have 2 parents who've expressed interest in co-chairing the CPAC. And so as a result, looking into CPAC bylaws, so they are required to be elected. So that's will take place then. There had been some concern that some folks hadn't received emails and whatnot, so the meet and greet information should go out across the district to all families, so that people who may not have an identified child with special needs would also be aware and could come.
Are you
and
going to be using
participate.
the app? Just strongly recommend that. I've gotten 2
Use the app.
notifications this week.
All right.
Yeah, definitely want to get
CPAC
the
app.
word out about that, because you want to
Yes.
have people there to be
Yes.
part of that voting process.
Yeah.
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 So-
It's been very helpful for me. I get pings on it, and I don't get 1,000 notifications about from Twitter anymore, but I appreciate the usefulness of the app.
All right.
The app, okay. Yeah. So I'm hoping for a good turnout, if anyone else is available and wants to come by. And, we're going to kind of move from there. The meetings from there will be decided, probably not monthly, could be every 6 to 8 weeks. So we're trying to get a sense from the community what they would prefer to do.
What was the time again?
It's 5:30 to 6:30.
5:30.
I think going forward, there's a thought that if there are some parents in terms of timing, that like a morning meeting or,
Switch it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it might be a switch up to be able to accommodate more folks. So we'll look into that possibility of maybe offering childcare, but,
Oh, great.
that,
Yeah.
by getting some high school students who would want to offer some of their community service time.
Nice.
So, yeah, so any questions or?
Oh, that's exciting. It's been a long time in
Yeah.
the works. That's great.
So, yeah, I'm eager to see it up and running, so that's good.
Yeah, once we can get some parent leadership in place, then be great for them to kind of take ownership of that and figure out what their
Yeah.
priorities are, right?
Yeah.
What kind of presentations they want to have, what they want to learn about. So That's great. Thanks for doing that work.
Yeah, and the two parents who are up for election as co-chairs both have experience in special ed, you know, so.
Like professionally, you mean?
Professionally,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Any other questions or thoughts on that? So next we have the cell phones and technology use update. That continues to be a hot topic
Yeah.
in our public comment, so
Yeah.
thank you for giving us an update there.
No problem. I have, our principals have been working, with that parent group, and I was going to have Mr. Marcos and Mr. Wolf, who are still here, come on up and kind of give an update on some of the conversation and kind of, where we're leading towards, also working with the school councils. I figured middle school and high school is probably the two areas that are most concerning. So there you go. All right.
Yeah, so we're collaborating with our school council just on some feedback. Obviously working with just getting PTO feedback and, I guess the outside parents, outside community. I can share just some really good data for you. So we typically have, looking at our data from last year, we had 18 technology violations that were strictly around the phone. This year we have 12. So not, a good decline, but not a drastic decline. We've taken 2 phones away for the day, where we'd have to call parents. We had a conversation, we haven't seen the phone yet with those other 2 students. So I think for the most part, our middle school program, or I guess the phone away policy, has been very effective over the past 5 or 6 years. We've never had a really drastic, I think aside from the COVID year, it was a little bit more of an uptick. But I think our data shows that our policy is effective. We're not seeing them out of the 12 technology violations this year. 10 of them are happening during unstructured times. Kids are leaving the building. They might be, in a cafeteria looking at the phone, or in the bathroom where a teacher's walking by and, hey, what are you doing? They get the phone out, things of that nature. So nothing's happening in the classroom, which is great. And we've never really had a big problem with technology or phone usage in the classroom. So it's nice to see those numbers going down. And we got really good feedback from our school council. Our school council are really grassroots. They're pretty involved. Our members are pretty involved in the community, and most parents seem to be very pleased with our policy. They feel like it's very fair. And it's pretty, cut and dry as far as what the expectation is, and if there are any consequences. It's pretty standard with step 1. Please put your phone away. Second step, it comes out of the office. We typically call home at that point. And if it's, a third or fourth time, that student will be on a phone contract, or we're going to say, hey, parents, just please, it's time for for your kid to leave the phone at home because they're just not using it responsibly in school. But again, we work with families if there's a safety issue or if there's a health concern. Obviously, we want the parents to feel safe as well, and just really set some clear guidelines for those students to be able to use their phones appropriately.
And just to add, I'm at the parent open house. I got a lot of feedback from parents visiting that the faculty at the NOC really emphasized in the beginning of the year cell phone use and really partnering with the parents. So that was
one of I think the strong feedback we got from the Heads Up Phones Down committee was, as far as our messaging this year, they just felt it was stronger. We were just more deliberate with our approach this year than we were in prior years. But yeah, they were very pleased with that approach, and it's always good to get feedback. We can always look to improve in other ways. So that was an area that we're happy that we're improving in.
I remember hearing some really great feedback on that phone-free dance that happened last year. Was that the PTO that organized that?
Yes, that was the PTO.
So hopefully you'll continue to do some events like that, because that seemed very positive.
Yeah, so the grade 6 dance is typically a big hit. 7th and 8th graders, I guess, are a little bit too cool to get school dances now, I guess. So actually we have a few of our PTO members are coming in. Our 8th grade parents are trying to find just more ways to engage those 7th and 8th graders. I think the really cool thing, and I didn't notice it because I was probably the only one on my phone during the Jackal Light night, taking some streams for our Instagram and whatnot. But all my staff members that were there were like, oh my God, we didn't see one kid with the phone out. And the event was amazing. You had 350 people there, probably more. Kids were just having fun. It was awesome. And not one kid was, in the corner on their phones. It was, really happy to see that. So we're looking at some more community events. We got a potential parent versus student game, and then the winner will play the faculty. So hopefully we don't have any torn ACLs and we can keep everybody healthy. That'll be another potential fundraiser that we would look for approval to engage the community in a fun, healthy way.
Great. My other question was about the trips when the kids are going to Philly and Camp Jewel. What sort of policies will you have around phones for those trips?
The great thing about Camp Jewel is there's no really service out there. So what the expectation will be is, obviously, it's a pretty long bus ride. Allow the kids to have it there, engage. It's an early morning, bus ride. Most kids will be on it watching videos or whatnot. But a second that they get onto the Camp Jewel site, the expectation was the students will be passing their phones in, and then also if they need to call home, there's plenty of landlines to do that. For the 8th grade trip, the expectation is we did see a big uptick, especially when they went to the museums, where there was a couple of moments on that trip in 8th grade where the teacher's like, oh, the kids missed the mark here. So the expectation is when they are, aside from the baseball game, aside from the bus to and from, the expectation is the phone is going to be away for the day, and we're going to be engaging in the festivities, in the educational piece. So that's definitely one change that the 8th grade team wanted to make right away from last year.
Great. Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. The high school's policy is different than the Knock Middle School, where we don't have an away for the day, but we do have an away for instructional time. So all of our teachers' classrooms have the shoe holders, and students are expected to put the phones into the holders at the start of the class. One thing that we did differently this year to try to emphasize it and be more explicit is teachers take attendance by way of the cell phone holder to basically make sure that students are complying. Now, I do have to say it's definitely not perfect. We do have students where sometimes they may put in a fake device, but if we see a student in the hallway with a cell phone, the cell phone is confiscated and taken for the day. The parents are called. If a student has multiple infractions outside of just any discipline, what we're starting to explore is more of a therapeutic approach with an adjustment counselor working with the student, because realizing there's an issue with self-regulation. One thing that I I ran a protocol at my October school council meeting. So I know some of you are high school parents, so you get my emails where I always share the meeting summaries, which are also posted on the high school website. So I definitely encourage all of you to read up on that conversation. But some highlights that really came from that, there were 3 questions that the team had a conversation around. What do you appreciate about the current school cell phone policy? What are the challenges of the current school cell phone policy? And what are your hopes regarding teen use of cell phones? And I really do want to do a shout out to my faculty. So last year, in the spring, when they were trying to make decisions around the summer reading and the initial part of the curriculum, especially at the junior and senior level, that was really a focus for them. So in the junior classes, all of the juniors read the book Accountable, which is basically about social media and it going awry very quickly. And so they've engaged, we also 4 years ago now at this point, many of our teachers, were trained in the skill of teaching dialogue. And so they use that in the classroom, and they use that with this text, Accountable. So where students had these prompts and they went back and forth with each other to really go deep with really the dangers of social media. And we've been able to contract with Katie Greer, who is coming in a couple of weeks, and she's going to be here for the entire day. And how we kind of have it structured with her, she's actually going to be meeting with the juniors in small groups. So based off of all of her experience around social media and the law, but really trying to teach students about this is something you need to be aware of and the dangers that are associated with it. Now, a step further at the senior level, what the teachers engaged, seniors actually had 4 books they could choose from this summer, but what was really cool, an overwhelming majority read the book Atomic Habits, which really centers in on these micro habits that you can coach yourself up on, and then they really honed in on the whole idea of what does it really mean to self-regulate. And so the seniors also engaged in those conversations around dialogue, and actually what was pretty cool, one of the students who's on the student council, she spoke about that during the protocol that we ran, where she shared with the team how through the dialogue and through reading the book, she learned about, or she was able to kind of self-reflect on why she wasn't sleeping well. And so one of the things that came up in the conversation is how so many of our students at nighttime, before they're going to bed, they're in their beds. I didn't even realize this, but they're basically just scrolling through their phones and then they can't fall asleep. But one of the takeaways that a bunch of students in this senior English class committed to was journaling before bed. So having the phones aside, journaling, and she says she has never slept better. And so that was really kind of a place where our council got to, even though I'm committed to having bigger conversations across the building, and I'm indifferent wherever we wind up going with our policy. But basically where the council kind of directed me is that there definitely appears there needs to be, regardless of whatever the policy is, there needs to be an educational component. Because this is not it's a tool people are always going to have, and it is about learning how to regulate yourself with the tool. So I am very appreciative with the direction that my teachers kind of had the foresight last spring to be thinking about this, and you know, we're definitely engaged. And then the other recommendation that the council had was if we can take what we did with the juniors and seniors and push that down even earlier, freshman and sophomore level. So that's something we're starting to wrestle with the instructional leadership team. And then other feedback that they had with our current policy is, you know, can we maybe insert just days, 1 day a month, at least start with that, where it's just a cell phone free lunch. So I've already had my initial conversations with the student council around that, and they seem very much on board with helping us to kind of push that forward. Because to do something like that, having that really come from the students, I think will have a tremendous impact. And what's great for me is I'm able to leverage the work that's been done really under the Atomic Habits and the book Accountable at the junior and senior levels. That's where we're at currently at the high school.
Yeah. I just want to say it's a huge credit to you that you have the ability to talk to students about helping to be part of the solution, because from day one, Mr. Wolf, you've been all about student voice. And I think that is true at the Culture Ride in the high school and continues to be. I love that the teachers are part of the solution too, but it's a huge credit to you that there's that trust level at the student level that that they feel empowered to be part of the solution.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Member Walker, and just the educational approach you're taking makes a lot of sense. It's very credible. I mean, it kind of, we teach kids all the time, right, the dangers of certain things and why not to do things rather than just the rules. And so it makes a whole lot of sense to take that approach here as well. I'd definitely be interested in what the freshman class, any self-reflection that they can go through on their own experience, maybe partway through the year, because they just experienced the Mullen and the knock were away for the day with the policy, and now they have all this new freedom in high school, including freedom of a phone in passing times or cafeteria or such. And I wonder what their own self-reflection is on how does this impact me, able to have, you know, more access to this during my school day, and how is my experience any different, and whether that's positive or negative. And I know this isn't directly related to phones, but just to technology in general. What the iPad, some things that we hear is that it's, I've heard, is that some classrooms that use iPads, some kids can be like very distracted with like YouTube or TikTok or other things that it's like, even if I'm not doing it, I'm seeing it on your computer next to me, and it can be really distracting. Like, have you heard that that's a problem from teachers?
We have had some issues with that, and so one of the pieces that our instructional leadership team, just so that we're starting to deal with things more consistently. So if the teacher is up there doing their instruction, the language that our teachers are starting to use is devices down. So that way everybody is all focused up on the teacher, and then we also have our teachers kind of repositioning themselves in the classroom, because a lot of our classes, students do collaborative work via the device, so where they might be providing feedback to each other, but with the teachers really walking around the room and just making sure that students are where they are supposed to be. I do have a meeting with our IT department on Friday to see what we can actually block. The dilemma is that some of these resources, teachers are also using. So you can't just do a massive block, but once we also get to closer to 100% of students using the iPad, there's softwares that teachers are able to use so that they can actually block the devices. And so each year we're getting closer, whereas last year I want to say we were at 30. And it's really, like, you can totally see the difference when you go into a freshman and sophomore class. Pretty much a majority of the classroom has the iPad. So I think each year with each incoming class, more and more students will be buying into the program.
Yeah.
And that'll be super helpful for teachers, because then they can just use that program that blocks, just kind of locks them into whatever the screen is the teacher wants them to be locked in on.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Oh, anytime. And I do love that recommendation on having the freshmen kind of self-reflect, going from middle school with less liberties and then coming up to the high school with a few more.
Any other questions, comments for Mr. Wolf?
Just as a follow-up on that, is that part of the struggle, is like the enforcement? Because there's clearly like a lot of tiers here. And just broadly, this is an interesting issue, because I think there's few issues in which everybody is kind of in the boat together, meaning students, teachers, administrators, us as a school committee, parents. I mean, this is not something that is coming from one faction. I think all the factions have been, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is suing TikTok currently in the past month, along with 17 other states. So it's very, very complicated. So my question is just, thank you, as Ms. Walker said, for including the students. I know that students are very helpful. They're also clever. I'm sure you put up a wall and they find a way to go around it. But it's quite clear that Newburyport's been way ahead of the game on this, and will continue to be, and I think we're going to be talking about this for a long time going forward. But there's a policy question, which is, this is your building, and perhaps these are your policies, and this is not our place to even get into that unless we would like to. But do you find that there's this tech enforcement? I mean, you could put up these barriers, but then it shuts down the system. One of the motivations is people want to help teachers, I think, and it's hard to enforce. And if there's inconsistent enforcement, then one classroom is doing really well, another one's not. Is that part of the struggle? These are great ideas, by the way. The phone-free lunch, all this stuff, the discussion of the books. I mean, it's really quite impressive. But do you understand my question?
I'm not sure.
I'm just. Are you guys? The attention has been brought to this issue that you guys have been addressing now for multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
Is part of the ongoing struggle the enforcement of the said policies?
I think that's in general, regardless of whether it's cell phones or other areas of classroom management.
Sure.
So we have teachers that are just extremely strong with classroom management, and then we have newer teachers that are still trying to figure it out, and then we have teachers that just need some coaching.
I see.
Right? And then, so that's where I see it as my responsibility, along with the other system principals. We try to get to at least 30 to 40% of our day in the classrooms. And really seeing what's going on, and that's where it's my job to ask the right questions to the teacher, to get them to kind of think through what are different methods and approaches that they can take to truly engage students in the classroom. Because if you have a classroom where it is all about the student engagement, those things really go away. And I've been in some classes where the teacher, because of the environment that they've created, the students are just locked in. And I feel bad going up to a student just to kind of ask a question because they are just dialed in with what the student, with what the teacher has them set up. And that's why we really look at that vocal data, which is so important. The views of climate and learning, where we get kind of a report on our classroom environment and our student engagement level so that we can put plans in place to support teachers with their instructional practices.
Do you have the impression that some teachers might find it easier if there was a blanket policy?
Oh, I think so. Well, we do have a blanket policy, is they need to...
I know, an enhanced one, I guess. The theory of an enhanced
Oh, yeah,
policy.
definitely, just an outright ban where students have to pass in their phone. Either, right, they lock it up at the beginning of the day. I think we definitely have teachers that would prefer that. We had done a survey last year, and it's almost just like with it was like 50-50. It's like, you can't win. It was, I was looking for more of a decisive way to go, but it was 50-50. It was almost like when we had the hat conversation a few years ago.
Yeah.
It was 50-50.
All right.
Thank you for...
Yep, anytime.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for coming in.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, just a few more quick things here on follow-up. I believe I sent this communications policy out to everyone recently, but just a refresher. So this is our policy on communications, BHE-R, which is here for you to review in our packet. We continue and will continue to receive communications from parents, either emails or I know we all have individual conversations with parents. So just a reminder that we're reinforcing the chain of command. So if a parent comes to you or reaches out to you with a individual concern about their child, or make sure that they know to go to the child's teacher. That then, if they're not getting the information to the parent before they go to the superintendent, or bring something to the full committee. And then for us as school committee members, it's kind of the reverse chain of command, and we need to be mindful of that, particularly those of us who are parents. Obviously, if it's something with your individual child, that's different, but if you have a general concern with maybe how a parent how a teacher or a principal is handling something, please bring that to the superintendent's attention and let him manage it from there. And I think the only other thing I wanted to mention is that we want to be mindful of that we're expressing our own opinions and not speaking on behalf of the whole committee outside of our business meetings. I will admit I don't have this disclaimer in my electronic signature, and I probably should. If you want to just copy that from here, it's the opinions expressed within this email are my own and do not reflect those of the school committee as a whole. The school committee has no involvement in matters of personnel. Complaints of this nature should be directed through the district chain of command, which is listed there. So that might be best practice for all of us to just stick that on our electronic signature.
I think the IT department can do that. I think they can do that so it's automatic.
Do it for us?
They can put it on the server end of things, so everybody's email does that automatically. The city council does that.
Can anyone weigh in on that, verify that?
We can look into it.
Look into it?
Yeah, if city council can do it, we can do it. It's the same setup.
So it would just be,
When you just go to
it would
compose a
just
new one,
sort of
it's sitting
submit at the bottom of
already.
every email
I
that
know
they send.
Juliet already has hers, something that says that, right?
Just a straight
Yeah, well, she's a model, she's a model member.
I get a gold star.
Is that something you could look into for us, Ms. Furlong?
I can, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions there? Okay. District website update. Oh, that's you, Ms. Furlong.
Okay. I think, I'm not sure the question.
Just an update on the website.
Did you have any specific questions, Ms. Walker?
Yeah, I just wanted to hear a status of where we are with the website, because it's been more than a year that we've been updating the website.
Would you mind coming up to the mic just so we're capturing this? Thanks.
Is this like about the switching of vendors?
Yeah, it's the website, just what is the status of getting it back up to where it was before, because it's definitely not.
In terms of rolling over onto the new platform, yeah. So we're close, we're still a work in progress with that. But we have been updating the old site too, so we're maintaining both sites at the same time.
Great. I knew that. It's just that it's just not a friendly site to search and use. And I know you have a better model out there, so I just think it's important for people to be aware that a better site is coming.
Yeah.
Because the one that's there now is not a great site.
Yeah.
You know, and it has the information, and if you know where to find it, you can find it, but you know, like when I search, a lot of random things come up. And I know you're working, I just want to make sure that we are that other people are cognizant that you're working on that adjustment to the newer site.
Yeah, that, once we roll over, it does have a lot more functionality. It's
Yeah.
just taken us a little bit of time changing of our operational structures here. So I have a new assistant who's started in August, so she's working on doing all the behind the scenes training so she can finish the rollover.
Great, okay, yeah, so that was, it's more just to keep the public aware, the parents and folks aware that, you know, we're working on it.
Yeah, I mean, just for background for the public, basically what happened is that the site that hosts us now was bought out by another site. They are no longer going to be supporting the sort of behind the scenes technology of the site that we're on right now, so we're needing to roll over onto a new site. A lot of the material will stay the same, but the sort of the structure and how we build the website is different, which should make it a little friendlier for people to use and should connect a little bit more easily with our app as well.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Is there a timeline for that?
I'm hesitant to give a timeline because it's just, when something else comes up, it takes precedence.
Or
for us.
surprises, sure.
So it is a work in progress. It's
Okay.
not, there's not a lot left to do, but there's a little bit left to do.
Thank you. Are there any other questions about that? Thanks. Okay. So I don't know if we're going to be able to get to this last item without the mayor here.
No, we can table that.
I might have something to say.
Do you want to
about
have some?
I mean, I don't know
some
what
input?
the mayor was going to say.
No, this was my request.
Just
Sure.
getting it up
But-
and running. It's just,
Exactly,
you know,
like,
how
what's
or
the next,
when
I
do we
wanted
get it
to
up
hear
and
from the
running?
mayor what the next step is.
Yeah.
Okay, right, okay, so the test worked.
Yes.
The audio was great.
Yes.
Video was what you'd expect. So if we decide to go with that, I have the equipment waiting to be used. It's just down to who operates it.
Right, and I think that's where it comes down to the superintendent and the mayor figuring out who's going to coordinate the Zoom.
Right.
And aren't there some costs involved?
We just have to change our
Yeah.
Zoom account back to what it had been during COVID, basically, when we had webinar access, I guess, and we only do that so you don't get Zoom bombed, basically. So, Andy Wolf had the account set up for that, and we dumbed it down to what it is now, which is fewer bells and whistles, basically.
But again, it's like every other city department does it, so I feel like.
Yeah, and I don't know what the city council does, because they may do meetings versus webinars, which I wouldn't recommend that.
Okay.
I figure.
I think it's, I mean, whatever, the mayor may want to have more input, but I think for the district, it's really in Sean's court to make the call whose job it's going to be to do all that.
Yeah.
It's yours. We'll put it on you. You do it.
Might as well. Yeah,
So
and
maybe
if we
we'll,
do have somebody, it would definitely be a stipended type of position.
But again, that's a decision I feel like the mayor and the superintendent need to
involved in.
figure out, and that's sort of what's holding this up. The department heads run it in other cases. The planning director runs the Zoom meeting, the city council president runs the Zoom meeting, or the city clerk. I don't think they get a stipend. So I think that's just something that the mayor and the superintendent need to work out.
All right, so we'll continue that conversation in 2 weeks, unless anyone
Sure.
had any other
Yeah, that's
input.
fine.
Once, presumably, the mayor will be here, so we can talk about it then. So we're on to new business. I have an item. Anyone else have new business? Go ahead, Ms. Walker.
My item might be the same as yours, which is the joint, I don't know, you're going to talk about the joint budget? No.
It's related to that, but you go first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was hoping the mayor would be here because I did want to give some input on the joint budget committee meeting, joint budget meeting, not committee, which is next week. in part because I went back and looked at the charter, and the charter says it's very light on details, but it's basically an opportunity for the two committees to come together, the council and the committee bodies to come together, the council and the school committee, to hear from the mayor, and I assume in this case the mayor's staff, on the state of the city in terms of expected revenues, expected expenditures, and overall investments, or overall, priorities. So, I appreciate that the format is taken is that the finance director from the city and then the superintendent both present to the school committee and the city council, and we hear from both of you about what the status is on expected expenditures, like a high level, right? But I also don't necessarily want it to be a grill session, which I think what would be better use of our time as two bodies coming together is to talk about some of the challenges we think are going to happen during this budget, and not necessarily have it be the staff are there to answer all our questions and get into the weeds, because we're not ready to get into the weeds. And so I just wanted to make sure that last year it seemed like a format, and I expressed my displeasure with the format because it was the two staff bodies presenting to us as an audience members. The year before, it was more collaborative. We sat in a round table and we had more of a discussion. And my hope is that that's the format we're going to have, and that the mayor's going to chair it, and we're going to have an opportunity to talk to each other across our budgetary roles and talk honestly about what we think the budgetary challenges are going to be. And we all have different roles. The school committee doesn't directly approve. We approve the budget, but we don't necessarily have control once it passes out of our hands. But I think we have the ability to inform the city council about our budget priorities. I think similarly, city council doesn't really have a role in the budget except to approve the final version, and then they can cut that, but they can't add to it. So, we're both constrained in our situations, but it would still be nice to hear what the priorities are, because either way, we have a voice in shaping the budget. And I'm sure the mayor will probably have some ideas on his priorities as well. So I just wanted to bring it up because I feel like it's an opportunity for us as a group to just come together and decide, or talk about what we think, the reason for having this meeting is, and that it does sort of kick off the budget season. I also just don't want it to be a grill the superintendent, because I don't think that's the appropriate venue for this. And I do want to follow up on the email that we received from Councilor Zeid. I did follow up and clarify that in his email, which was fine, he expressed some of his priorities, but the purview of the school budget is not necessarily one committee of the city council, because we've done away with that education committee. It's still our purview, but in general, the general government or general government services subcommittee committee of the city council really is the purview through which the schools are kind of the opportunity to have discussion about the schools with the city council, not the finance committee. So I just want to, and that was clarified by the council president. So.
Does that ever happen?
Does whatever happen?
Well, the discussion in the committee you're talking about.
Well, no, so the email seemed to indicate that this topic of school budgets and school MCAS and all that fell under the city council finance subcommittee.
Right, and you're suggesting it's under the purview of...
It's not necessarily a cut and dry, like that's where it fits. The
Right.
general government is actually where the schools
I appreciated
supposedly
you
fall.
clarifying that, because I was thinking the same as you on that.
So the specific question is, does that discussion ever come up in the general government?
Well, I think
meetings?
we've talked about it as a communications subcommittee about having them be part of a conversation, but I don't know that they talk specifically about the schools without inviting us or the superintendent.
Yeah,
I think
that was
that's
the question,
typical,
thank you, yeah.
Anyway, that was more of a tirade than anything else, but I just wanted to have an opportunity to.
No, I think it's a great point, because I'm not sure that the council included, city council, I'm not sure everybody knows what the function or the purpose of the meeting is. So I think a lot of us will be coming in waiting. So maybe what Ms. Walker's encouraging, at least reading between the lines, is that we should all speak up a bit and talk about our concerns and priorities.
Yeah, thank you. That's I was trying to encourage us to use it as an opportunity for dialogue and not just be there to receive information.
Great. So kind of adjacent to that, I just wanted to fill everyone in that Mr. Callahan and I were invited to City Hall last week. We had a sit down with Kim Turner and Ethan Manning, who have been meeting with representatives from all city departments to go over their new planning around this. They've developed a system for rating and prioritizing items for the CIP, which looks great. What they showed us was a draft, so they asked that we didn't share it with you tonight, but just kind of gave you a heads up. They were seeking some input and feedback, and then they're going to have a full presentation at the joint meeting next week. I'm very impressed with what they've come up with. So it's a 10-point, not 10-point, but there's like 10 different items to rate something, and if it gets full weight, so there's like something is maybe, if it's sustainable, that's like 10 points, and it's percentage. So the perfect project would be 100%. And so it's a way to make it measurable to prioritize. And so they've got it all just very nicely articulated. And this was in response to, I think maybe we're all aware, the City Council did not pass the CIP at their meeting at the end of the last fiscal year in June. And so they're trying to come up with a way to really attach some powerful data points to these projects so that they can be measured and prioritized. So they'll have a full packet with all these details that they'll present to us next week. And then once that's been presented to both bodies, they'll be working with the department heads. They'll be working with you and Mr. McSweeney to implement this system so that when CIP items are presented, these weighted ratings will be attached to them. So I don't know if there's any questions about that. Questions can probably be held till next week, because they'll have it all spelled out for us. But I was pretty excited about that because it seems like it'll have some real potential,
Yeah.
Anything else for new business?
I just have, on the joint budget meeting, do you want me to present typical information that I normally do?
I am not in charge of the meeting. I think, personally, I think it's fine for you to present the overview. My point was more that this isn't like, let's grill the superintendent on every detail of the budget and where the schools are falling short. It's a dialogue between our committee and the city council. And I will follow up with the mayor. I don't know if others have followed up with the mayor on the format, because we had talked about this at communications subcommittee, but I would encourage that we have a forum that's set up to be a dialogue, and maybe the video folks are hearing me. The setup shouldn't be a presentation format. It should be a
Like this shape.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, because a couple times you guys have both done presentations and it takes the entire time, and then it's like, okay, thanks, and we all go home.
Yeah.
And then we see the same presentation later at our own meeting. That's not fun.
With different numbers.
You have a copy of the strategic report that you did tonight. That it looks really great. You can hand that out. You don't have to go through it. I think the information you provide is good. It's just maybe just focus in on the key details. Have it be as short as Ethan's.
That's the goal.
So I'll have that, and then I'll prepare for that anyways, but the dialogue might be different. And we'll have it if we need it.
Sounds good. Anything else? Okay, well, I move that we enter executive session for the purpose of discussing possible litigation and/or legal matters, and we will not reconvene in open session.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Reardon?
Present.
Sarah Hall.
Yes.
Andrew Goldberg.
Yes.
Brian Callahan.
Yes.
Brianna Higgins.
Yes.
Kathleen Shaw.
Yes.
Juliet Walker.
Yes.
Thank you.